Yeah, Nacho, you can. Good afternoon, everyone.
I've started it with that.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. This is Uday here from Incubate Hub. Uh, Appreciate your time. For the today's session. This is yet another series of webinars Incubate Hub has been having. Uh, and today's topic is all encompassing. If you ask me, looking at the current nature of the way we have evolved from enterprise applications to the CRMs and the likes and the shared services apps in any corporate for that matter. And the current emerging trends and technologies and the whole deluge of huge data of varied sources, right, structured and unstructured, have really added to the complexities of any app development. And again, the customer experience and consumer experience when it comes to themes like direct to consumer to others and in every sphere of life has become so prominent for any app to be effective, right? And app development has been like absolutely an iterative process, as you all know. So really appreciate your time for this very engrossing session. I'm sure today, today's session is about solving biggest quality problems for today's apps. How multi-device usage and market fit at optimal cost can be achieved. You know, and what is the missing piece? That's all about what today. Mayank, the speaker, is going to cover to ensure that you and your team are able to deliver quality apps on time, right, including competitor analysis, sentimental analysis, app performance, security aspects, and accessibility. Just to give you a quick intro about the speaker. you know uh, Mayank, who is the founder and CEO at Qualitrix, has enormous experience for more than about 18 years and into quality engineering and testing. With has worked with quality engineering and testing firms with global presence. Also a founder of O Primes, which is world's first self-managed platform for multi-device and user testing. He set up PassBrains India, a Swiss-based QA technology firm. At Cognizant Switzerland, Mayank led European testing practice for a global business unit. He comes with an awesome education background, in terms of having completed his MBA in finance and marketing from Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, and also Bachelor in Technology from IIT Varanasi. Specializing in software testing and quality engineering space, I'm sure today he is going to take us through the whole journey of what encompasses the whole testing aspects of today's apps. Having assisted 100 clients in end-to-end QA transformation, that is a huge amount of experience he carries. And I mean, obviously, he has consulted multiple ITIS firms in setting up crowdsourcing units. He's based out of Bangalore, and Mayank is father to an 8-year-old daughter. So over to you, Mayank. The floor is yours. Appreciate you having come over today. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Uday. Am I audible?
Yes, very much.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this webinar, and hope that next 30-35 minutes would be interesting and we are able to cover things that you are looking forward to knowing more. Very quickly about Qualitrix, I just wanted to share very quickly about what we do as a company. So Qualitrix is just completed 5 years. We are celebrating our 5-year anniversary in February. And we are basically end-to-end quality engineering and testing firm. We actually maximize in automation, doing more and more projects related to automation, and we also focus on enhancing usability of the products, for which we have our own solution, like a crowdsourcing platform that I would probably be covering at the end of this session. So without taking much of a time, I'll just jump onto the core agenda of what we're going to cover today. So basically what I'm going to talk about is in the first half of the session, I'll talk about the current quality needs. What is quality actually in 2021 for the apps that are created new? So how the quality assurance and quality engineering thought process has evolved over these last couple of years, and then what are the gaps that are there in the current methodologies of quality that are being in practice, right? Because of these new emerging trends of application, how these gaps are getting more and more exposed, and then how we can plug in those gaps, how we can actually plug in those problem areas. And then with this context, we will talk about how existing solutions of, say, specialized testing, test automation are trying to fill in these gaps in bits and pieces, and how kind of crowdsourced testing also comes in and kind of plugs in and makes the whole entire process coherent and seamless. And lastly, we'll talk about the role of quality assurance engineer, or how in 2021 a practice of quality engineering and quality assurance can be seen by any of the organizations. So without taking much time, I'll just start now. So this is very, very interesting. It's a very simple question that a lot of product managers keep asking me. When is my mobile app market ready? In fact, I ask a lot of them, and most of the times their answer is that, oh, we had a wonderful idea. We actually made beautiful features, and we have a kick-ass development team. So I think we are going to do great. Now, just to show the facts here, one out of 10,000 applications actually succeed beyond a certain number of times. So actually speaking, most of the apps fail within 1 to 3 days of them getting uploaded on Google Play Store. So the core reason for this, if you see from this statistics, is that 60-65% of the reason is related to quality. And primary reason is that people did not research much about the market needs. So a product manager or a founder of a startup thinks of a wonderful idea that he sees around himself or herself, and then starts thinking of building an app on it. He spends a lot of money and then also invests a lot of time and energy into building that app, and then thinks that the features look good. He'll try to add in a lot of features into it, make it exciting, and then he realizes that it fails. So where is it failing is basically, one, on the understanding of what the customers need, and second, on actually making a product which works perfectly. The behavior is something that is liked by the users, and that is adding up to around 60%, which can be attributed to the quality of the software. Now, uh, let us see what is the meaning of quality in 20. Yeah. Did anybody interrupt? Had any question?
Go ahead, go ahead. Unless anyone wants to really ask anything, Mike, you can go ahead.
Cool. Okay. So what is the meaning of quality in 2021? So this is a very, very interesting question, because things have now completely changed. There was a time when in early 2000, when I was working, then every tester was working as per the specifications given to them by the product manager. They were just executing, writing test cases, and that is all that the QA engineer had to do. Once the product went live, they had no responsibility of what was going on in production. I think that kind of QA has died now. It's not relevant, and if you are a QA engineer of that type, I think you're non-existent. You will not be required in any organization. Basically, now what quality means is that you need to understand the product better than anybody else in the system, because you are the first user when you are actually assessing the quality of a product, right? So the first question that the quality person has to answer is, are you solving the right problem as a product manager or as a product owner, right? So the problem that is coming to you, are you solving something which really the market needs? If the end user is actually looking for something that that what you are providing from your product. Moreover, if you are solving the right problem, are you actually solving it the right way? Which means that, are you able to find a right solution which is likable by the customer, who finds it easy to discover it, who finds it very easy to understand it, and get some benefit out of using that product or whatever app that you're developing. So both these aspects are the primary aspects which make sure that your product or your app is fitting the market need, the target segment in which you are going to come. Once these two are solved, then you have to actually look at, are you actually trying to do too much? Because a lot of product managers these days are trying to bring in more and more features. If you see Amazon, the journey of what Amazon has done, you see that it started with just creating a bookshop, and then evolved over time, over a period of 20 years. You don't want to be Amazon on day one. And that is what a lot of product owners are doing. So this is something that you have to see how you phase it out. So you define one critical flow or critical problem that your business is solving. You pick that problem, solve it, and then move forward to adding more and more peripheral solutions that your consumer will like. They have to get adopted with the one solution or one critical problem that your product is solving. Now going to the other side of it. So if you see the first 3 points that I mentioned, were more related to the understanding of the market and making a product fit into that market. Once that is done, then the second aspect is how good that product is actually working for your user, which is where the user experience part comes in, right? Now, these days, what happens, any app that we are developing is relatively much easier to develop than what we used to in, say, early 2000, because now the system is very open source. You have a lot of flexibility. A coder can actually pick up and build an app within, like, with a lot of ready-made frameworks within no time. But the problem now is that even if you spend much less on building the application, you have to make sure that it works fine. And that environment in which you are using that application is very complex. Things are very, very open. So relatively, you will have a lot of interoperability issues, compatibility issues with different systems, upgrade, downgrade issues. The users are distributed, and there's a huge, possibility of a user to give a quick feedback to you, which can be viewed by everybody else, and within no time, the product quality will be out in the open. And then the loyalty of your consumers are very, very less. They can very easily find some other alternative and move there. So the entire usage condition is extremely complex, and we have to make sure that the quality of a product is engaging with any user that you are actually targeting to reach out to. The other thing is that the usage is not just about scenarios. It's not like about just a spec testing that needs to be done. There are so many different aspects of an application, right? You have to see that it works fine in different network conditions, on different devices, on different, and there are so many edge cases for a particular user, for a particular type of customer. If you look at, say, even a telecom operator like a Vodafone, so their app will have so many different complexities, right? They have different packages, they have different types of users, prepaid, postpaid. So all of these complexities are adding more and more into the usage difficulty to make sure that the quality is as per the need. It is not just a specification based testing or a specification based quality that you can deliver. So eventually what is happening is your tester or the person who is responsible for validating the quality of your application, it becomes overwhelming for him or her. So what happens is they keep trying to make sure the quality is up, but they are dropping the ball on one or the other side because there are so many different scenarios, there are so many different platforms, and at the same time, so many different dimensions of quality. At the same time, the time is very limited because everybody wants to reach the market fast, and then and if they don't do that, if they keep spending more and more time on building the quality, then they are not able to meet the curve because there could be someone else beating them to the market. So eventually what we are seeing is happening for today's product is quality, cost, and time are kind of becoming three parameters out of which you cannot control all three. And when you are trying to build quality, cost or time is getting compromised, or if you are spending too much cost or time on it, then you are actually losing to a competition. So basically, if you see this, what we are needing in today's application, so the key problems, if I try to summarize them, are basically two. One is your application fitting the market needs. Two, if you are delivering something which is seamless and giving a great user experience. So if you have these two in place, your product will definitely be a best-selling product. And you have to achieve this at a controlled cost, and you have to maintain a certain speed to market. So these two are the parameters which are kind of driving, or rather, this is the framework under which you have to deliver 1 and 2. And this is basically the holy grail of quality in 2021. Now, we'll have to see in the second part of this discussion how we can actually achieve this, because all these things that I've told till now are something which are probably very easy to understand, but it's not very difficult. It's very, very difficult to actually make sure that you are able to meet them in your testing life cycle, or when you are making sure that quality of your product is correct. So if you see here, what I have tried to do is I have tried to put together all these points, the 5 things I mentioned previously. One was the market fit. Second was the seamless user experience, which probably has 2 parts to it. One is accuracy of the application, and second is the consistency, which is more like how it works on multiple location, languages, different user demographics, and then speed to market and low cost. So if you see this, the current quality solutions or the current quality methodologies, basically there are 2 methods. One is using experts, 2 is using automation. Now these experts could be your product manager, your tester, your business analyst, or you yourself as an owner. But the specialists, what they're able to do is they're able to make sure that there is a certain market fit. They get a kind of a feel of it. They are very good at making their product accurate and robust. They will not be able to do enough consistency checks because the combinations are huge. They will not be able to do it. And when they're trying to do all of this, they will definitely lose on speed. And they will, but of course, they will be low cost. That is clear. So that is when the automation piece kicked in. So when the automation piece kicked in, automation helped them in improving their accuracy and robustness. A lot of device farm integrations, multi-device automated solutions are able to cover the consistency part, but for a very well-defined scope. And then they definitely gained a lot of speed to market. And they also actually, but automation is relatively costly, right? And also there is a flakiness that comes in with automation in many cases when we have a lot of dynamicity. So basically, if you see, when we're integrating these two solutions, we are still exposed in these two areas. And that is the core problem of today's applications. So whatever solutions you have in the market, they are not able to give you from quality point of view, whether your product has a good market fit or if your product is consistent across different devices, networks, the works. So eventually you need something to plug in these two gaps. And that is where we have seen and we have proven that crowdsourced testing solution is kind of fitting into it. Now, if you see, crowdsourced testing is not a standalone solution. It's a plug-in solution which kind of sits on top of your existing framework of a quality methodology and gives you a completely, I would say 360 dimension to your applications. So what it does is bringing in crowd testing. I'll talk about crowd testing, how it works, etc., in the subsequent slides. But for the time being, if you assume, as the name suggests, crowd testing is meaning bringing in a bunch of people to do testing. They help us in understanding the market better, and they also help us in making sure the product becomes consistent. Obviously, there is a gap in crowd testing in terms of accuracy because you have to have a very good quality of testers or very good specialists and experts which are well integrated into your network to bring in accuracy. So that is something which obviously cannot be 100% assured at an early phase of crowd testing. Of course, with time, you can bring in more and more quality into your crowd. But if you put it all together with your specialist in automated testing, then you get a complete picture and you see that the entire solution is kind of covered. So basically, what we are trying to think, or what I'm trying to say, is that this is one piece which kind of plugs in, and 100% this is going to be the future of an integrated quality model, where you will have an automation, you will have specialists, and then you will have a layer of crowd, which you can call users, or some people call it beta, but a little more structured than that, as a part of your testing lifecycle or as a part of your development lifecycle. And that would be something that would probably make sure that your product is getting the right quality. Now, if you see this is exactly speaking about what I just told. So integrated model, which kind of solves the problems. If you see in the center, in this circular diagram, there is research design, there is verification and validation, and there is launching and continuous improvement. And this is surrounded by specialists, then automation, and on top a layer of crowd testers and crowd users who are kind of giving this a complete coherent picture. So now let us see what is crowd testing. So on a very, I would say, layman terms, crowd testing is nothing but a testing that is provided by a bunch of people. Now, we have been doing crowd testing from donkey's years. We have been giving out our application to people around us. We ask friends and family, closed user group testing. It's been there for a very long time. So it is not something which is very new. The way we are putting it is new. What we are doing now is we are trying to manage it and bring a more wider audience into the product life cycle. So basically what we are doing is we are inviting a group of people, which could be either experts on the product or users of the product, who are coming in and in a I would say more methodical or a structured way, giving a feedback. And that is all delivered through a public crowd or a private secure network to give you results. So what it does is this kind of a model gives you a lot of access to different kinds of devices on demand. Different networks, different conditions of live environment can be replicated within minutes. You get a feedback or a perspective from people who are from your target demographic. You can have them included in your community. they give you feedback, you are knowing and understanding whether the product, even at a design stage, is in line with their expectations or not. You get people on demand, so you do not have to spend much. You just use them for the time you need, and then you let them go. And for those people also, there's an additional income. So infrastructure is also available because these people are providing their own infrastructure mainly for consumer applications, and then that is something that could be leveraged for testing. So cost also is controlled. So basically, if you see how is this thing plugging in, the gap that we talked about in our quality method. The first is that it is actually giving us much better coverage. We are able to cover everything in terms of hardware and software and getting feedback. We are actually bringing in market analysis. So I have run projects where we do competitor analysis using Crowd. We have done sentimental analysis of user from App Store data. We have done analysis of basically performance of an application. So when you're actually using an application under different network conditions, how a user is perceiving it from client side. So all this can be collected, and we also can do UX studies with them, run surveys, personal interviews, so kind of focus group testing to collect feedback from them in an early stage. It's on demand, so you get desired skill set and infrastructure within hours. You get faster results because you can actually get the entire testing done within days because the testers are available, infrastructure is available. Definitely because of all this, it's relatively cheaper, and it is scalable because you can add as many testers as you want in this whole process. So basically how crowd testing model works. If you see, the crowd testing starts from building a community from general public. So there is a platform or there is a crowd service provider or a solution provider who kind of imbibes a certain set of people who have the right skill set into their community. So it's a curated community. From there, for every project, you select or handpick right people who are actually right skilled or meeting the right demographic needs to do the testing for you. Then they perform the test in a more structured way. You provide them either instructions, scenarios, guidelines, and they do perform actions like issues, bugs, UX feedback, test cases, or different platform coverage. Those results are filtered by a review team, which could also be either crowd or in-house, and then testers are rewarded and results are delivered. So if you see in your crowd, you have all kinds of people in the mix. It could be your employees, it could be, so it's a concept actually. You can use the crowd within your organization, outside the organization, or with any model. So basically you are already doing this in bits and pieces, but all this model is doing is to bring a structure to it. So you can have software users, professional testers, your own employees, contractors, partners, or subject matter experts of the industry as a part of this community who are working with you on a recurring basis. If you see, there are two delivery models with crowd. The first model, which is where your internal team keeps control of most of the strategic activities. So you design the cases, you create, you manage, you review the work, and you push the rest of the work to crowd, which is more the execution task. So wherever you are actually struggling is you want certain scenarios to be performed or certain feedback to be collected from different people in the demographic. So only that part you kind of crowdsource. Rest of it you keep internally. The other model is, which is something which a lot, or rather most of the crowd service providers doing, is they keep only the supervisors or the managers inside, and they kind of crowdsource everything, which is definitely lower cost for a service provider. So it has a low entry barrier for them. So they can kind of outsource designing, testing, management, everything to the crowd. But what I strongly feel is that the first model is more suited for enterprise and assured results. The second model is more like a gamification. And second model is the reason why crowd has not been adopted as explicitly as it could have been by now. So reliability, accountability, and assurance of result is something that is missing in this industry. And that is mainly because we try to crowdsource more and more things, which is not the right way. So we have to make sure that what are the right things that you should crowdsource and how much control you should keep in-house so that you get the desired results within the stipulated time. And there are three different models in which you can set up. Like I said, crowd is a concept. You can set up a completely private crowd where you have your internal network, your partner network, etc. You need to have a platform. That platform technology will allow you to actually run the crowd. So you can build the crowd yourself. You can use a complete community crowd provider or something that you build from outside. And third could be a combination or a hybrid model of both. And generally, the third model is what is more preferred in most cases. But of course, depending on the privacy that you need or the secrecy or your confidential needs, you can look at one or the other model. What does crowd testing covers? So like I said, you can actually even cover the functional bit of it, but in most cases, generally look at crowd for doing multi-device compatibility, UI, UX, then performance of your application, UAT support, beta testing, and production live. Although I've mentioned test case design here, I have mentioned sprint and build testing here, which is something that we have done, but that is something which you can only do at a much later stage of maturity in crowd testing. But in the early stage, with minimal effort, you can start with multi-platform compatibility, UX, performance, UAT, and beta in production. Those are the areas where your main gaps are, and you can plug in a lot of issues by running crowd in that phase of your quality. So once you have finished your sprint testing, throw your product to a bunch of crowd people, get feedback, and make sure that your product is well aligned within, before the time it goes live. And you can also cover a lot of advanced scenarios like content validation, accessibility, user testing. We have done that for some clients where we have visually disabled testers also coming and doing testing on accessibility. Ethical hackers are there in the community, so you can get ethical hacking on and kind of white hat testers also to do testing for you. And of course, market analysis, where we do competitor analysis, performance analysis, crash and user sentiment analysis, all in one phase. And of course, usability study on the product, where you understand the UX of the product, the flow, the navigation, if users are liking the button, UI, everything that can be collected. Now, I told so many good things about crowd, right? Then what is the problem? So why is it that crowd is not being adopted, and why don't we see crowd testing everywhere around us, right? So basically, there are two reasons. I would say rather four reasons, but I've clubbed them under two reasons. So first is accountability and productivity. And this is where I already told that this is something which is a biggest problem. Accountability and productivity is a challenge because people don't know how to control the crowd. So they try to play it as a game. And they also feel that if I give it to the crowd, who will test, what will happen, will there be a result or not? And that is where most of the beta programs, including Android beta program, is failing. So you see, I have talked to customers, they say, oh, I have 20,000 people in my Android beta program. What more can you provide? I had this discussion with even Jio and Paytm and the likes. So I am telling you that if you're going with crowd, so maybe you have 10 million users also, right? So why is it that you still need your employees to test? If you have a 10 million user community, why do you need them? So it is the same thing. If you have a beta community, it is not structured. You may invite those 20,000 people. They may or may not come. They may or may not give feedback to you. So when you need crowd, you have to have an accountability and a reliable productivity coming out of them. And that is something which is very, very critical, which can only be done by managing and controlling them. Second is the security and confidentiality part, which is a bigger risk because a lot of products, they don't want to expose it to unknown people. So that is where we need to talk about how we have to control the crowd, how to control how we share the information, how we distribute the application to the crowd people. So if you see, like I said, for crowd model, just like any other model, we need to have a proper management and professionalization of the crowd model. So if you see, one, there has to be a very strong technology base, the technology that allows us to basically make sure that you are able to run the tests, you are able to control the tests, distribute the work, and collect the work. And it can also be integrated with your testing lifecycle because there are so many testers involved here. If you're not having good technology, then the process might break. Second is the crowd has to be curated. Time after time, you will have to refine your people. You have to have ways, again, it comes back to technology, how you manage the performance of your people. And that performance has to be kind of validated from time to time so that you can curate the people and you only start, separating wheat from chaff as you go forward from there. Thirdly, you have to have a very strong delivery process. I mean, I have run some workshops with, say, DXC Technology or other such organizations where we have defined certain processes which are very specific to where you're very similar to your standard testing lifecycle process. So how you have a crowd testing lifecycle process, how you manage delivery, what are the quality gates, what are the change management, all of these aspects, how when a crowd comes into your STLC or your testing lifecycle, how it kind of adapts or makes sure that the whole process becomes seamless. And finally, how you're selecting your testers. So there has to be again dependency on technology to select the right people who should work for you. It should not be that you just arbitrarily give product to multiple people. That also works, but then your product has to be extremely consumer driven, where it doesn't matter that who is checking and who is giving you feedback. Then even a larger audience would be okay. In terms of security, obviously there has to be different layers of security need to be checked out. One is how we distribute the application. So in a secure way, using a VPN tunnel or using a test flight, hockey app, email IDs, UDIDs, all these things have to be put in place as a typical outsourcing project. So I could easily say a crowdsourcing project is very similar to how in early 2000 outsourcing was happening when, or rather in 90s, when people were a little skeptical about giving projects from say US or Europe to India, because what will happen and who will check. Now the same thing is about crowdsourcing. But the nature of the time and need is that this is becoming more and more prominent and necessary. We can do background checks on testers, we can do NDAs with them, project specific, and then in worst case, we can also set up private crowds, like I mentioned. So the summary of this is, do not see crowd as an alternative to your other solutions. It's an augmentation. You have to plug in the gaps using this model. And that is where the real value will come in. If you will try to replace crowd model with specialist testing or automation with crowd, then you have to be very mature as an organization or as a crowd service provider. Then only you will be able to handle it. But still, there will be a lot of challenges because these days every organization works an extremely agile model, and so it will become very difficult for you to handle crowd in an agile model. So I always suggest you, even if you want to work with crowd, don't say as a crowd model. Work with individual freelancers, get your sprint in place, and then you open it to a larger audience. So it's a crowd testing, but I would say in the first phase, it is not actually crowd testing. It's a freelance testing. If you don't have internal employees, work with those specialist freelance testers, get the product stable on one device, functionality wise, and then use crowd to get the benefit of what you're looking from the crowd. That is multi-device testing, market fit, and performance and live network feedback. These are some of the key players in the market. In fact, the recent Nelson Hall review also mentioned all these players, so including Qualitrix. Operims is one of our products, so I mentioned Operims also here. So Qualitrix was also in one of the top 10 crowdsourced testing service providers across the world by Nelson Hall consistently over last 3 years. And Applause is in the US, Bugfinders is in UK, Testworks in Germany, Fastbase is in Switzerland. So these are the other players. In India, I think we are one of the largest. So this is a very interesting case study I wanted to share with you guys. There was an OTT player. This is very recent, and we actually had a major issue that these players were going live, and they were actually trying to launch a big movie on their platform last year in November, and it was October end, and their rating was 2.7. So they were extremely worried, and their automation and functional testing was not able to solve it. They were getting a lot of crashes, hangs. They were using their application on TV, Android, iOS, all kinds of devices, and they were not knowing what to do. So what we did was we set up a 50-member crowd on 50 different devices. Within a period of 8 hours, we captured 90 critical issues, and we repeated this 8 times. So you can imagine we completed 400 execution rounds, because 50 testers into 8 times, 400 test runs on different devices within a period of 12 days. And the app rating changed from 2.7 to 4.4 before the major launch could happen. And even till date, the customer actually thanked us for that 15 days engagement. They were working for last 2 years on this product. And for that 15 days engagement, they thanked us in front of the entire audience as one of the key contributor to the success of that launch. So that's how crowd testing works. Okay. I think that is all I had. Rest of it is more about Qualitrix, we as a company, and Operims solution. So I don't want to go into it much. I will just tell you that Qualitrix has a platform. As a platform, what it has is 2 options. One is that it has a testing as a service model where we provide services to our clients. So we have a platform on which we have around 30,000 testers, and we provide coverage in 110 countries. So these customers can come, take services. We provide them subscriptions for doing cycles every month or every week, depending on the number of products that they have. Second model is a SaaS-based model, which we have launched just last year, in which we provide a private setup for you as a private personalized instance. So for example, if your company is ABC, we create abc.oprimes.com. You have your own company admin, your own project managers, run the show yourself, tell us how much crowd you need. So you tell us we need 500 people, 5,000 people. We create a private cluster for you depending on the demographic need you have, device need you have. You assign it to you and you run the show on your own. We keep hand-holding it. We keep paying the testers from the back end, and between us, and you can control the entire show yourself. So that is what we have. So this basically kind of replaces device clouds. This replaces beta testing, integrates with your Google Beta program, and also provides you a lot of automated app analytics and feedback on demand. This is the platform, integrates with Jira, Slack, and all the latest tools. So automatic information can go into customers' Jira and Slack. This is the community distribution. These are the kind of reports that you get out of it. And finally, I just wanted to summarize by quickly telling you that how I see a role of quality engineering in 2021. So basically today, QA has to break into two parts. Either you become an automation expert, go into quality engineering as a geeky coder, or you become a domain expert, know the product, and sit at the table with the product manager, become a representative of your user and become the first user. And that is the bridge which basically we have to kind of create between the coder and the user to solve the quality problem. Crowd testing is kind of all over as a part of this bridge, and that has to be integrated into this overall ecosystem. And that's all I had, Uday. Anything? I just thought I still have just 5 minutes left.
Awesome, Mike. Thanks for taking us through this whole journey. I'm sure anyone who has any questions, happy to take some questions. You may want to use your chat or even unmute yourself and ask any questions you may have. So, Mike, in the meantime, I will just ask a question, right? What is your typical engagement model? Two aspects of it, if you could share, while you have said that, right from the design and the wireframing stage and all that, getting engaged would surely be very much needed when you are really looking at a minimum viable sellable product or a product market fit. So if you could share that with us a little bit more in terms of how do you recommend to engage, with any team who is developing a product or an app?
Sure. So there are two ways in which we can engage. Like I said, one is the testing as a service model. So where we define what are the products that you want to test in this model, and we create a kind of a portfolio for you. That could be, and then we define how many cycles that you want to do. So you may want to test every product every month, or you may say, I have 5 applications, or I have 1 application. I want to check it every build that goes live before that, or I want to check it in production once a month. So based on that need, we kind of put together a size of the crowd that you may need. So we can define a 50, 100, or even say 30 people crowd, and then define the periodicity in which you want to run it based on the number of products, and create a monthly pack for you. And then we define that we can sign up a 6 months pack or a 12 months pack in which you can run all these projects in a managed mode. So we will have a project manager liaising with you like a typical account manager or project manager. The project manager will define and run the cycles with your team and will provide results which are, as a part of your release process. The second, like I said, is a self-service or a SaaS platform in which we provide the platform to you. You define your own project manager. We give you hand-holding for first 1 to 3 months, and the entire thing can be run by your own. You can bring in your own people onto the platform. You can have our people. You define the crowd, and then once that is done, we keep paying from the back end. We make sure that the crowd is active and available, but the entire work and everything can be managed and done by yourself. These are the two models. And we have in this second one, the payment is like we have a subscription annual fee for the size of the crowd you're looking for. Platform is free from our side. And then we charge a certain cut from the payout that you make to the testers.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that. So Mike, one more, in terms of if you would like to share, right, leveraging the crowd, right, for the testing at various stages and for various reasons, right? It could be related to, say, testing of security or testing of data privacy or other features for that matter, right? In terms of validation and all that, and user experience per se, because various countries, cultures have different flavors in terms of how someone would want more of, text versus someone who would want more of pictures, right? Those kind of feedback. So have you seen that, in these areas, how crowd testing has been much more beneficial?
That's correct. So, like I said, so understanding the market fit of your application or even feature fitness, right? So we do a lot of tests, we do a lot of UX studies. So there was one application which was more of an online card game application. They asked us to do this kind of a fit test that they have certain features that they are coming and launching with. I mean, whether their customers are going to like that feature, right? There was one telecom provider who had launched one new kind of a payment method into their system, and the customers did not like it at all. They had already launched it and they kind of rolled back because they felt that the feedback that we got from the initial, say, 500 users was not positive. So this is again, if you see, what I'm talking is nothing new. You have this focus group testing in marketing for tens of years. People have been opening up a product in FMCG area to a smaller group and then getting that feedback to defining whether they have to launch it to a larger group, right? It's a part of R&D also. Now this is coming into IT application system as well. In IT application system, you have the liberty of not having to invite people into your office to do this. You can always do it online. So IT applications ka UX study, design patterns, all of this can be thrown out to a bunch of people, maybe 50, 100, 500 people, collect feedback, do a statistical analysis, and based on that, identify the patterns with which you want to build your application for.
Got it. I mean, today, everything is all about smart sprints, and iterative way of really evolving and pivoting your app at times, right, into few of prominent areas which you possibly initially thought that might work, but eventually you feel, hey, better to focus based on the feedback. So, any experience you may want to cite where, because of your engagement, is where the whole team, the app team, got feedback about where they should focus and things like that.
Yeah, so that is standard parts of our business, because generally what I avoid, and I'm just quickly doing a time check because we're already at 3:45, so I'll just quickly take 1 minute to answer this. So see, as a part of QA, quality engineering team, the way we want to, or I want to see situation is that we should be knowing the product much better than anybody in the system, because we are the users, we are the first user of the product, right? So whenever we are getting any application, we are getting any feature, we have to look at it from the eyes of a user, or we have to be a technologist and we have to be automating it, right? So that's the second part of what we do. So when we are looking at it as a user, we have to be giving our feedback to even the product designer, the business analyst, or even at the product manager. So that is when we get enough respect at the table, that we are not just executing something being told, which used to happen earlier, right? We were given certain use cases, user stories, we write test cases, we execute it. Now we have to actually understand the pulse of the production market, what people are feeling and talking about this product, so that we can give you a feedback back as and tell you that I know you are liking this, but my customer, my user is not liking it. So that is how we have done a lot of time, and that kind of changes the entire thought process, and also brings in much more value to quality as a part of the quality engineering team.
Awesome. Thanks, Mayank, for this. Yeah, I know. I mean, we are almost up. We have just about a couple of minutes more. If anyone has any question, kindly unmute yourself and you may ask. Or else, obviously, people who could not join, this is being recorded and surely on demand, will be shared with all of you. So you could always reach out to Mayank and his team later as well.
Mayank, I have a question here. See, I understand your platform is doing a lot of digital adoption and sentiment analysis, a lot of end user analysis. So my question is, so why are you positioning your platform as just as a QA testing crowdsourcing platform instead of a more wider play kind of a position?
It's a very good question. So when I think that was also covered as a part of my presentation, right? So I said that platform can offer a lot of things, But what happens is when we try to solve too many problems, we don't sell anything. So I actually have faced this. When we started building it, we said that, oh, this can do this also. This can be a device farm also. This can be a marketing platform also. So we can do a lot of things. But even if you look at, say, any successful solution in the market, let us first see success in one area and then expand its reach more and more as we go forward from there. That's the goal or a kind of approach which we have taken. And also, as a startup company, we always have limited resources to invest into when we're expanding a platform, right? So obviously, platform, if I look at it in a utopian state, has so much to offer that it could become a complete, quality platform for and quality and marketing related platform across the board. But one day at a time is how I see this.
Thanks, man.
So Mayank, just to quickly add to what was being asked, is it that when it comes to really looking at the traceability of bugs which got fixed at what stage and all that, that would continue to be done by the app team in their own other tools, or what is it? And what all gets done in your platform, and what all may have to be done outside the platform? If you would like to quickly share.
Great. So Uday, actually, what we can keep building more and more features of test management in our platform, right? But what we have thought is to keep it very lean. Not many people want to use too many systems, right? So what we have done is our platform is like sitting in the center, which has access to crowd, but not many companies will be comfortable moving entire system with access to outsiders, right?
Correct.
What we have done is we have kept ourselves with an API integration to industry standard tools. So if a customer wants, they have the freedom to use our tool on its own. So a lot of startups are doing that they run the entire bug management on our platform. They want to even survey everything they want to. They can run the entire testing lifecycle as a QA tool on our platform. But a lot of them still use Jira, right? Because your developers, your entire organization is running on different tools. So what we have done is we've provided those API integrations. So you get the result from outside, collect it, dump it on and screen it at our platform level, and then sync it up with the standard tool like Jira. So, or even Slack channels. So that way, what happens is that there is a cleanliness within your organization and you don't get exposed to outsiders unless you really want.
Awesome. Right. That makes really very good sense in terms of how you would like to approach, and that's a good way to go about it. Yeah. So I think great. Anyone has any question? Last question if you may want to take, or else we can end our session. So great. I think Mayank, thanks everyone for joining in. And today it was very, very, pertinent in today's world in terms of what Mayank covered. And we would surely love to see your feedback and reach out to us, either at Incubate Hub, or, my email ID is uday@incubatehub.com, or you could directly reach to Mayank, at his email ID, mayank.mittal@qualitrix.com. Here you also see his mobile and a WhatsApp number, which is 9620774653. And have a great afternoon. Really, thanks Mayank for really getting us through this whole and giving an insight about your platform. And wishing you and your team the very best. I'm sure, I think, global, this platform is being leveraged globally and would continue to be leveraged by a lot of teams all across small and big apps, and wishing you the very best.
Thank you so much today. Thanks a lot for giving this opportunity. And thank you everyone for attending it. Bye.
Bye.